So, up to now, we have discussed what do we mean by the implied authority of a partner. Now we come to the liability of a firm and its partner to a third party. Means, do the partnership firm has any liability to the third parties, or the partners of a partnership firm has any liability to the third parties? So in that, the first liability is liability for wrongful acts of a partner, which is covered under section 26. So, under this, we will say the firm is liable for all the wrongful acts of a partner. As we know, partner has the capacity to bind the firm by its acts. So, if any partner do some wrongful act, so for that wrongful act of any partner, the firm would be liable, and the firm would be liable only when this act was done in the ordinary course of business. If the partner has done something extraordinary and it was not a routine part of the business, the firm cannot be held liable. And again, when the wrongful act which the partner has done, that was also done with the authority of all the partners, so only then the firm would be liable. When we say the wrongful act means anything done under the fraud or with the negligence of the partners. Let's see the example. A and B were partners in a firm. They were carrying on the business of buying and selling the wine. C, a wine merchant, employed the firm of A and B for buying and selling the wine on commission basis. C gave a sum of money to the firm for the same. A gave the false accounts of purchase and sale to C and misappropriated the money. So the firm was held liable to pay the money to C because it was done under the wrongful act. Next, we will discuss the case of Hamilton versus John Hodgson and Company to prove this point. A and Company and B and Company. There were two companies, A and Company and B and Company, were two separate firms which were carrying on competing business. A partner of A and Company, bribed B, a clerk of B and Company, and induced him to give secret information about the price and customers of B and Company. Due to supply of this information, B and Company suffered a loss in the business, and B and Company brought an action against A and Company for the recovery of the loss suffered by them. So it was held that A and Company was liable to pay the amount of loss to B and Company, as A's acts was done within the implied authority, because it was the usual for the person engaged in that kind of business to obtain secret information from their competitors. So all the points here, the one partner of A and Company, that is has bribed to the another person B of B and Company, which is a wrongful act. But this act was being done in the usual manner of the business, and it was done on the name of the firm. So all the conditions are being fulfilled, and it was a wrongful act, and for this act the firm would be liable. Second liability is liability for misapplication of money or property by a partner. If a partner misappropriates any money belonging to the third party by using the name of the firm, would held liable for the same. Section 27 of Indian Partnership Act explains the rules regarding this. 1. Where money or property is received by a partner, then that misapplication misapplied by the same partner. That means the person who has received the money or property has misapplied that property or money, or this money or property is received by the firm and is misapplied by the partner. Whatever the case is, in both of the cases, the firm would held liable. In short, if any money is being received by a firm or received by a partner and is being misapplied by a partner in the usual course of the business, in both cases the firm would held liable. In the first case, that means when the money or property was received by the partner and misapplied by the partner, is done under the implied authority of the partner. Whereas in second case, money was received in the course of the business and misapplied by the another partner, that any firm cannot receive the money at its owns, it works through its partners. So this principle works here. So in both of these cases, the firm would held liable to the third party for the money or property received. We can clear this point more with the help of the example. A and B are partners as solicitors. C, a client of the firm, gave some money to pay for investing in a specific security. A did not invest the money but misappropriated it to his own use. C filed a suit against the firm for the recovery of money which he has given to A, so it was held that the firm was liable for the same. But when the act was done in the ordinary course of the business of the firm, then all partners would become liable. So, see the case of Devyans versus Nobel. A, B, and C were partners in a firm of brokers. B, a customer of the firm deposited his ornament with the firm for safe custody. A and B sold this ornament and misappropriated the money. C, being a sleeping partner, did not know anything about this act of A and B filed a suit against the firm, including all the three partners. So it was held that all the three partners were liable for full value of the ornament. So whether any partner, as in this case, C is a sleeping partner, whether any partner knows about the act of the other partners or not, but when it is done under the ordinary course of business, then all the partners would held liable. Where the act was done by the partner and not under the ordinary course of the business, then the firm cannot be held liable for any misappropriation done by the partner. Means when the act is done under the ordinary course, the firm is liable. When the act is not done under the ordinary course of the business of the firm would not be liable for any kind of misappropriation. Let's see the example. A, B, and C were partners in a firm carrying on banking business. B, a customer of the firm, deposited with the firm a box containing securities for the safe custody. Afterwards, D authorized A only to take out some of the security and to replace them by others. While replacing the securities, A misappropriated some of them. So it was held that firm was not liable because B elected to D only with a particular partner and not with the firm. That means D has selected only a partner to do that particular task, to replace that some others. So but it was the D has not authorized the firm, D has authorized only a partner, and it was not done under the ordinary course of the business of the firm. So in this case, the firm would not be held liable for the misappropriation of the money. Third is the liability by holding out. As we have learned so many times during our lectures, that a partner by holding out means when someone shows it that he is a partner in a firm, but the other person knowingly permits him to represent as a partner of the firm, but in actual he is not a partner in a firm. In such case, if any act is done by that holding person, holding out partner, the firm would be liable for that particular act. Let's see the example. A introduced B to C as his partner and B remained silent. In actual, B was not a partner in that firm, but when the B remained silent, so he worked as a holding out partner. In fact, A and B were not partners. In this case, B becomes a partner by holding out and can be held liable to the third parties for the acts of the firm because the persons outside the firm treat him as a partner of the firm. But the following conditions must be satisfied under section 28 for making a person the partner in holding out. 1. There must be a representation by the person that he is a partner in the firm. The third party must have knowledge of representation made by that person. Means that representation can be made in the presence of that particular person, or the other party must be knowing that representation was made, and the third party must have acted on the faith of such representation. He has or the third party has entered into a contract on the faith of that representation which was made by a partner in holding out. Only that person can enforce liability under this section to whom the representation was made. If the representation was made in journal, so only that person to whom that representation was made regarding the holding out partner, only that person can enforce the liability of that partner or that firm. Exceptions to holding out, the persons who are exempted out of this, one is the sleeping partner. A sleeping partner, as we have read in our previous lecture, sleeping partner is that partner who do not take the active participation in the business. So a sleeping partner after retirement cannot be held out for holding out. If a sleeping partner has taken the retirement either by age or by some voluntary reasons, he cannot be held liable for the holding out. Second, if his existence is not known to the outsider, the public notice regarding retirement is not required. As in case of other partners, when one partner get retires from the firm, a public notice is being given. But when the public notice is not given, then the active partners they remain liable. But in case of sleeping partners, if the public notice regarding the retirement of sleeping partner is not given, even then the firm would not be liable. Second is the case of the deceased partner. If any partner of the firm due to death now is not a partner of the firm, the estate or legal representatives of that deceased partner cannot be held liable for the acts done by the firm. Even if after the death, even if the name of the deceased partner appears in the name and affairs of the firm, even then that partner's legal estate or the legal representatives would not be held liable for the liability. Third one is the insolvent partner. If any partner is being declared as insolvent by the court, so from the date when he was declared insolvent, he would not be liable for any kind of liability of the firm. And even in case of insolvency of that partner, any kind of public notice is not required.